Hello, everybody, and welcome to another pricing Q&A. I'll start with an outside question. Would running a price survey, so asking your clients about how much would they pay for your service. Would running a price survey with my potential market give me good results? In general, no, because whether they want to admit it or not, your clients have a vested interest in paying you as little as possible. So even if they want to be really fair, it's probably not a good idea to ask them that like that. Rather than asking them how much would you pay for this service, which is, like I said, if you ask them, that's a vested interest, you can get better results if you, let's say, tell them a story about the case and then say now how that client paid me for that. And he was very happy with the terms. He was very happy with the relationship between what he paid and what he got. So how much do you think that he paid? So that's a challenge, right? That's a completely different question. It has nothing to do with their case. It has nothing to do with their interest. It's just a challenge on their smarts, on their, idea of the market, of the problem. It's interesting and it's challenging, and it doesn't have anything to do with them. And technically, it's the same question. So you will get much better results posing the question that way. Because if I ask an owner of a Mercedes-Benz why he had to buy a Mercedes-Benz, he will say, well, it's the fuel economy, it's the German engineering, it's this and that. But if I ask them why did their neighbor buy a Mercedes-Benz, they're probably going to say, oh, it's a chick magnet, right? They're not going to say that about themselves. So when they're asked about somebody else, the result may vary in a big way. So that would be my advice. Don't make a direct survey, make an indirect one, and you will get much better results that way.
How would you go about influencing your client? Let's say it's not a new client, it's a client that you have an ongoing business relationship with. How would you go about influencing him about the way he presents you to his business partners when he speaks to them?
Okay, so you're not talking about the direct referral. You're not talking about you calling your client up and say, hey, this guy is going to call you and ask about my services.
No.
You're talking about the passive stuff, right?
Passive stuff in a more informal environment.
Okay, that could happen in many ways, but the way that you can channel it, the way that you can direct it in a way, is to make it easier to talk about you in some ways than in others. And so the first thing that will pop into his head is going to be the easier part. And you can do that by providing some specificity, so some specialty. Because if you don't tell them what your specialty is, they're going to improvise it. Oh, they do, stuff with things. They solve hard problems for clever people, or some vague stuff like that. Right? Because specificity is very important in the nebulous world of corporate communications, well, business communications in general. Even if you can do many other things than just that, it's a good idea to provide them with some specificity. I can do many other things apart from pricing and price negotiation and value communication, but I only write and talk about those because that's then something specific about me. That's something that you can tell to somebody. And if I do come up as a topic of conversation of one of my clients to some other, they're going to say, yeah, he's the pricing guy, right? He will not make a laundry list of 20 things that I can do for them. Maybe I have done much more than just pricing for them, but they will refer to me as a pricing guy, and that's what I want. To go with an easier to remember answer, let's say you're designing a bumper sticker because you want people to remember you passing by in traffic. If you stick, honk if you like matter in general, that's not going to be a very memorable one. And although people like stuff and stuff is matter, you're not going to get a single honk. If you design the bumper sticker to say honk if you like cabbages, you might get some honks, right? I mean, technically it's more things if you say matter in general, but that's too vague, and not nobody's going to recognize themselves in there. So you're not actually losing honks, or in your case, clients, by making the clients talk about you in a specialized way. Because if they say, oh yeah, that they can do anything, nobody's going to see themselves in that. Nobody says, oh, I need the guy who can do anything. To make it very short and punchy, would you buy a panacea? I have this wonderful bottle of stuff that heals all ails, right? All diseases. Yeah. That wide smile is telling me no. You see what I mean, right? You see what I mean? So specificity is a way of making it easier to talk about you in a way that you want to be talked about. And then the other side can recognize themselves in that specificity and say, could you get me could you get me his number? Even if you technically can't do many more things, you settle on one, and then you get to the client because they want to talk about that. And maybe it broadens, and maybe it doesn't. But there's no way that going all the way as wide as you can is a good way of communicating. Because, like I said, if they don't know what to say, they're either not going to say anything about you, or they're going to improvise, and that's not good for you, right?
Yeah. Okay.
If you follow up on that,
let's take this situation where my client is talking to one of his partners, and a certain area of problems arises in this discussion. How do I ensure, and let's say that this area is my expertise, within my expertise, how do I ensure that my client mentions specifically me and not somebody else to his partner?
Okay. So if they're going to talk about people of your profession and they know a lot of them, how do you drive them to talk about you and not somebody else?
Yes, so let us suppose that there are more people that they could mention, either because they work with more than one, or because they know more than one.
Okay, specificity helps here too, but I already told you all that you need to know about that. But specifically here, I would also talk about favors, because talking about an expert in this context is a favor. They're doing somebody a favor, and favors are a currency, right?
Yes.
So the bigger value that you brought to them, the bigger the favor of them mentioning you to somebody else. And if they're doing them a favor, they're going to try to do them as big a favor as they can, because they want the reciprocity, right? They want the favor back. So if you can facilitate the way in which your client is aware of your value that you brought to them, you grow the chance of them talking about you, right? Because they're not going to go again through a laundry list of, oh, I know this one and this one and this. They're going to do the biggest favor that they can, and that's talking about the biggest one who brought them the biggest value. It's simple, it's just not easy. Fair enough.
Yes. Okay.
I'll continue with the outside questions. If you have another follow-up, you're welcome. If I didn't start giving out the service yet, because I don't know if it makes market sense, how would they know how much anybody would pay for them? So how would people know how much to pay for a service that nobody among them yet experienced? It's technically the market potential question, right? How do I know that people would buy X? Because I don't want to go and develop X if people won't buy it. How do I know if they would buy it before I develop it? It's the chicken and egg, right? Because only if it's true that they would buy it, only then would they know a ballpark sum. Yeah, in that case, I guess they paid this, or I guess I would pay that. The secret to seeing if there's market potential is looking from the other side. So you don't start with the features. You don't say, this is what I do. I take this many hours, or these features of an app, or these acts, right? A set of tasks. You start with the problem. Specifically, you start with an expensive problem, because solving nice to have problems is either labor intensive or capital intensive, or both. So you can solve nice to have problems, with an app that can reach 1 million people. Yeah, sure. Or you have to delve deep into customization, and that's labor intensive, one-on-one work, which doesn't scale. These are tough markets. So if you're going to solve some problems, you should concentrate of solving some problems that matter, and they are usually expensive to solve. And if you can have a better way to solve an expensive problem for the same price, high price, or the quality is the same, but your price is somewhat cheaper, but still high, then you have a market, right? And you don't have to develop the thing first to see what problems would they solve and to whom, and are those problems right now seen as expensive by people. You can ask, you can get answers, and then you can decide if people would buy it at what price and does it make sense to develop it in the first place. So if you want to figure out which problem is expensive, try to see, okay, this is a set of problems that these people in this target audience have, and how do they solve? So what are the iterations? What are the different ways in which they can solve these problems, and which one of those is the most expensive one? You can try out, you can ask for pitches, you can do many things, right? You can research that. That's Googling these days. It sounds way fancier than it is, right? And it's just very important that you don't put blinders on and think about only one industry. So people may solve a particular kind of problem within your industry. So let's say with an app, but they also hire people to do that for them. So it's often that you hear from tech founders, right? No app in the world does what ours does. Okay, fine. But there's every secretary in the world does that, right? And secretaries do other things as well. It's sometimes hard, but it's possible to see where the alternatives, not just competition of your problem solving technique cost. And then you can say, okay, yes, this has a market or this doesn't have a market. How do I deal with clients who don't really know what they want? Oh, a common one. Yeah, make that approach. So I don't really know what I want, but I want you to pitch me. Make that approach the most expensive one, wildly most expensive one, and absolutely the least convenient one. So you say, yeah, okay, we can go that route. Here's a 60 question questionnaire which you should fill up, and then I'll give you a quote, right? You want to absolutely dissuade them from going with that approach, because that's almost guaranteed to wind up as a bad experience for you both. Yes, by doing that, you will scare away the worst combination of clients, which are undecided clients who are also cheapskates and who are trying to use the vagueness to drive down the price. And it's good that you drive them away. These people are time wasters and energy vampires, and you really don't have enough time in your day to deal with them. So scaring them away is a good thing. Usually, the rest will at that point sober up and concentrate. If they see a way that half an hour of concentrated thought can save them a lot of hassle and money by actually figuring out what is it that they want, right? So you act like the government here. You tax the undesirable behavior, not just with money, but with effort as well, because they may not care about money, because they're a corporate, because there's a budget. And so make it the most undesirable way of hiring you. And if somebody persists in that, at least you'll make a lot of money wasting their time. That sometimes happens. You have to know that you did everything that you could to stop it from happening. If it happens, at least you'll make some money. That's the best advice I can give you here. How do I deal with clients who have the money and the need, but are so time poor they can't work with me? I could talk about priorities here, right? There's a famous story in which a woman was extremely busy and couldn't really fit anything into her schedule, and then a pipe broke in her basement, and fixing that, getting people to fix that, took like 16 hours out of that week, and she still sometimes managed to survive that week. So obviously she had enough time. She had the 16 hours magically, right? She probably couldn't do that every week, but some weeks she could. But think of time and attention as costs. So you could try to develop solutions which are more expensive maybe in money, but less expensive in time. And these are things that people can listen to asynchronously or in some time that is convenient to them. There are ways today with technology that is absolutely possible. So you can say, okay, we have an email only asynchronous communication, and that's fine. That can absolutely be done, right? So you can develop solutions which lower your price in time, and that will attract some clients which your competition or your alternatives can't really tap into because they ask for too much time from your clients. So you basically consider them a different target group, and you may develop some products which are specifically tailored to that kind of people. And people who really don't have the time usually have enough money to afford those kinds of solutions. So I recently could have attended series of webinars for free if I was there when they were live, or I could have paid not an insignificant amount of money to get only the recordings, right? And I absolutely opted to paying for the recordings because I couldn't be there, and some of the webinars I absolutely want to hear at normal speed, but some of them I'll probably listen to at double speed because I probably know what they're going to say most of the time. And I only just want to check, right? And that is worth more to me than not paying anything and having to be there. So that would be a case where I'm simply a different kind of target audience. I'm interested in hearing what they have to say, but I'm much more comfortable with paying in money than paying in time. So that's another example of it. Thank you all for your questions. These were very interesting. And thank you again, Marian, for showing your face. And I'll see you all again in 2 weeks. Bye.
Great. Bye-bye.
Everything changes.